All right, everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Modern Times podcast of 2016. This marks our 1 year anniversary of the show. I'm Nigel Driner, and I'm joined, as always, by Sarah Beagleson.
Hello.
And also Anne Munley.
Hi, how are you?
And we're not really going to have a large base topic today. We're just going to kind of go over a couple things, a list of things that we'd like to get through before we jump into a brand new topic for 2016. Before we get started, I'd like to mention a couple things that were posted on our Modern Times Facebook group that are of interesting conversation, I'm sure we can get out of it. The first is everyone's posting pictures of their Chaplin book collection, and those are really cool, and it's inspiring us to look into possibly, well, not possibly, we're definitely going to do it, an episode about Chaplin books. And that's quite a wide base topic because, you know, you can have so many Chaplin books in your collection, but you're not going to have them all. There's no way.
No.
Isn't he one of the people that have had the most amount of biographies written about him?
Most written about, at least actor.
And they're in different languages. I mean, I think it is so awesome that when Charlie Chaplin released his biography in 1964, it was translated in 25 languages.
Wow.
I mean, which is unimaginable today to have a book come out and be in 25 different languages.
And that's been in print since 1964, hasn't it? It's always been out in some way, shape, or form.
Right. And I think they just reissued it about a year and a half ago. And David Robinson's book, which is my Bible, came out in 1985. And then it came out in 1991. And then the 2001, which for some reason was only issued in Britain. But they just reissued Life and Art about a year and a half ago. And I believe that book that they just reissued is his 2001 edition, which, I mean, it has so many different little things in the back. It tells you, you know, his chronology, his films. I mean, it's just full of so much information.
And this is why we love Anne, because she has such a calculated memory of all these books. I mean, I have a lot of Chaplin books, and I remember information from them, but I couldn't tell you what book such and such thing came from. I'd have to go back and find that. Anne just knows. And she knows when it came out, the copyright date, what the cover looked like, what page it's on, and I'm so glad to have her on this show because
our personal encyclopedia.
I would be lost with that technical information. Like, I know the years things came out, but Anne knows like the time and the time zone that it was released in.
And the publisher.
So we are so blessed to have
Thank you.
And you, Sarah, too, because Sarah, and like I said, when we first started the show, I really wanted to get everyone from all these different generations to come together and talk about Chaplin, because Sarah, you're younger than me, and you definitely have the knowledge from a different perspective that we might.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm a little out of tune lately. School's been pretty busy, but otherwise, yeah, since I was about 13, it's just been in memory.
I was really impressed because I posted a picture of, you know, my book collection or whatever, and you picked a book out of there that I've read before, but it's really involved. It's Chaplin, American culture. Yeah,
I have that one. Yeah,
that was I still have it. My main source for an independent research paper I wrote about when I was a senior in high school. I did it it was completely my decision to do it. I'm like, I want to do this. And I did. And I thankfully got an A. And it took me all semester to write.
Wow. How many pages was it?
It was, I believe, 28 pages.
Wow.
Oh, my Lord.
And I wrote about definitely the gold rush, shoulder arms, the immigrant, modern times, and the great dictator, and how they each correspond to American history.
I remember that they had a huge chapter on Verdun in there, if I recall.
Yes, a very big one, and how it was actually a popular movie at the time, but even though people were a little put off by how it wasn't the Tramp anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but it was well received by critics at the time.
Well,
Well, yeah,
Orson Welles was involved in it, so
Orson Welles wrote it,
yeah.
and
Oh,
Chaplin,
that's
yeah.
I
yeah.
will say, did not give full credit to Orson Welles for Monsieur Verdoux, but I did not focus on that film when I was writing my paper.
Yeah, you have enough pages to to cover in
Yeah,
there.
it was. I can't. On average, I guess each one was about 5 pages each film.
But you know what's interesting is when you write about a topic that you care about, it doesn't feel as tedious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would just like listen to the same music over and over in the library, constantly find different books about like the Klondike Gold Rush
Hmm.
or immigrate like Ellis Island immigration, and definitely World War One. That one it was just pulling from my own memory.
Well, Sarah, at some point you should if you still have that paper, I'm sure you
I
do.
still do. I don't throw away anything.
We we could do an episode where you just read off of that and just tell us.
It'll take like 2 hours, but sure.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think after a year, Sarah deserves a show that spotlights her.
Oh, yeah,
Because she is
yes.
so patient. She is so patient between you and I,
Oh
Anne.
my, because
It's my
I go
Midwestern
back.
personality.
I go back and listen, like I'll be driving and I'll be listening to our earlier podcasts, and I'm telling the early ones, I was like Quick Draw McGraw, and I'm like, oh, that poor girl. And then that's why I started, and sometimes it'll be like an awkward silence because I'm just like, not saying anything, letting Sarah talk, and because I get excited, but you know,
Yeah, no, we all do, and we've all gotten better at just holding our horses and letting other people talk. But and I think a lot of that is when we start having the guests on, because I think we were so worried about not cutting the guests off
Oh,
right.
that we just let them talk.
Oh, because
Um,
I wanted so much to ask Dan and just input, but I was like, if I start talking, we're gonna get cut out. So,
well, why don't we go over a couple of our terrifying moments from the past year when we first started recording these shows and how green we were to everything.
oh yeah, probably the first one would have been the Super Bowl moment for
Yeah,
sure. Because I remember when after we recorded the first time, I was like, "Wow, that was so well done!" Like I felt like I contributed well in that one. And I remember saying something like how the scene in City Lights, the final scene, was what is the scene he wanted to be remembered for, but the entirety of the Gold Rush was his ultimate legacy.
yeah.
And then then it didn't record at all, and so we had to redo it.
Oh, and it was terrible. And ever since then, both Sarah and I record separately
Yes,
on our own because
ever since that incident, it's better safe than sorry.
there's nothing more terrifying than recording a 2 hour show and then going back to listen to it and it's just not there. And
Right.
it was because it was Super Bowl Sunday and the internet Wi-Fi connections were terrible. And I didn't know really the program that I'm using now. I didn't know it sent me this little message that said unable to record or unable to connect or something, and I didn't even know what it was, and I just like X'd it out. I just like clicked out of it.
No, no. Remember, you paused it.
Yeah,
You
and
paused it to like go get a drink of
somebody,
water or something.
right? Yeah,
then we
And when
get
we
exactly.
got back, that's when we lost everything.
and then the first couple episodes there was like a weird lag, and it sounded like everybody was talking over each
Oh,
other.
I
Yeah.
know. You know what? Exactly. Like I listened to some of those earlier ones, and I'm like, we sound so obnoxious because it's like people are talking over each other, but they're really not. But that's what
Yeah, it was
people
just like the
hear.
delay. There was like a delay for some reason, and then we went back on the recording, I would cut you off and you would cut me off, and I would try. And when I went back to edit it, I'd try to edit it to make it sound better. But when we're talking over each other, there was just nothing I could do. And
And
I know that on our YouTube channel, somebody commented on one of the early videos quite recently, and they're like, "Why is everyone talking over each other?"
It's the
and I
quality, not us.
and I have been suffering my own private hell. The first episode, it's like was using my laptop, and I sound like I'm underwater. Okay, so you brought that to my attention. So then I started borrowing my mother-in-law's laptop to do the podcast. But sometimes, she's not in the greatest of mood, and I was always thinking to myself, oh my God, if I need to borrow this laptop and she's not in a good mood, I'm screwed. So that's why for Christmas my husband got me the iPad. He's
that's
like,
nice.
this way you don't have to worry. Not that it would happen, but I was just like, oh my God, she's in a bad mood, or whatever. But yeah, I remember you saying that. So that's why I never used my laptop to do a podcast, because I sounded like I was underwater. So getting that sound quality, and I'm listening to it, and I'm saying to myself, why do you keep saying, you have to stop that. You get yourself so critical, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize I actually sound like I'm from New Jersey, because I don't hear it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've all gotten better. We've all gotten better at, those little tag words that they always tell you not to use when you're doing a public speech or whatever.
And that's why when we had Dan Kamen on, I really admire him, and I felt like, oh wow, he's doing us such a favor by doing this podcast. And then at one point he was, started telling his story from his time, when he lived in Miami, and then we got disconnected, and then
I felt
Sarah.
so bad. That was all me. I felt horrible about
No,
that.
it wasn't. It wasn't, because even after you left,
it was still bad?
Yeah, it was still precarious. So that's why we just let him talk. We didn't.
Right. I was really excited for that interview with Dan, because he helped with all the choreography and teaching Robert Downey Jr. and Rob McClure how to do the walk. I was so pumped about that.
Well, Sarah, you had homework to do or something.
I had a ton of school stuff I had to get done. Not just homework, but clubs and everything, because I had a lot of. It was a busy semester, basically, and
but you were like, I can pop on for a little bit. So
yeah,
and then you couldn't. You spent the whole time you had trying to connect to us.
Yes, and I was also working on crafts at the same time, and I was in this lounge on my floor where I live.
Right, and it sounded like you were in this huge library.
Oh no, it was this lounge, not very big. It's tiny, and it has the worst Wi-Fi. I shouldn't have gotten there, and it echoes too. That's the problem. But I will have my own room next semester where I can just do whatever I need to do.
Good. Well, because I felt bad in that one. I'm like, well, we have Dan on, we can't stop it. But at the same time, I felt bad that you weren't able to be on there with us, because I think there was a couple episodes where you weren't even able to be on at all. So I didn't want people to think you weren't going to be here anymore.
Yeah. I was on my own sabbatical, I guess.
and then ironically, that's the podcast that got kicked off of YouTube, right?
On the not the Dan Kamen one, the Robert Downey Jr. biopic one.
Oh, okay. The one where we talked about his film.
And it said that it was copyright infringement and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, I don't even know. And there's no way to really call YouTube. There's no way to really contact anybody and have them get back to you.
Was there a cover picture showing him from the film?
The one thing I think what might have happened was, I think it might have gotten flagged as uploading the actual movie.
No.
Right, because you put Chaplin 1992.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of times the title of that particular film.
Yeah, so I reworded it, and I just re-uploaded it, because if it happens again, I'll have to do what I have to do, but as of now, it's fine. I haven't gotten any issues with it, so I think it was just the wording, the way I titled it, but if that's the worst thing that happens to us, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, c'est la vie. So,
yeah, year number 1 is down. We have a lot of exciting topics and things we're going to get into in the new year, and a lot of suggestions from fans on the Facebook page, which we definitely take into consideration. But I wanted to also bring up Sarah Tamson and her video that she made on how she made her Chaplin doll. And
Cha-cha is what she calls it.
yeah.
Yeah. I first met Sarah like online a couple of years ago, and this little doll that she makes, unfortunately, most of the people in the United States are not familiar with the Chaplin and Company cartoon, which is in France.
It's a European made.
Right.
Is that still on?
Yeah, it's in France, it's in Asia. I don't even believe it's actually in the United Kingdom. I could be wrong. But
because Chaplin isn't he isn't as popular there as you would assume anymore, is he? In the UK.
United States and Britain have treated him. It's a weird thing.
But he's still popular in France and
like Brazil, India.
Yeah, right.
But this doll it looks just like him, like that little doll from Chaplin and Company.
And I remember Sarah mentioning how she was inspired from the Rankin Bass film. Which one?
Yes.
Year Without a Santa Claus?
Yeah. And how he just sticks out because 1972 was a big Chaplin year. Chaplin Renaissance, I'd like to say. And
she's made an Edna Purviance doll. I've said to her, you should mass produce these and have them sold at the Chaplin Museum.
They're darling.
But it's a lot
professional.
Of work. Yeah. It's so sweet. It really is just, it's sweet. And she calls him Cha-Cha. And, I've seen a couple of people online that are like, his name is Charlie. Sometimes how purists get, but, it's anything to me, anybody that promotes Chaplin in any sort of artistic way is all right with me.
I agree.
And and I like it because it can reach out to children very well, because children love boys and it's very cute. So yeah, definitely it would get, because even though the films speak for themselves, some of them can be a little crude, especially the early ones.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh yes.
Adults, and this Cha-Cha doll is so darling. I don't see why it couldn't be reached out to children in a positive manner.
And she tried to get something going, like a thing to get that cartoon here in the United States. Mm-hmm. But the Cartoon Network, isn't interested.
Right. Of course they're not.
Right. It's Cat Dog and, the other ones.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a cute
even if they were
too,
able to get it on, even if they were able to get it on like Netflix or Amazon Prime, because kids really don't even watch, like, Saturday morning cartoons don't even exist anymore.
No,
because you have channels where it's nothing but cartoons for kids all day. Like what if the Disney Channel got a hold of that show? That would be great, and that would appeal to 3 to 4 or 5-year-olds.
Disney Channel has a morning program for little kids called Playhouse Disney. I think it's still called that, where they show things for toddlers and like just out of kindergartners. Like, they would love something like Cha-Cha for sure.
And if there was a way that they could include like maybe some of the cartoons in the DVD releases, because people just don't know that cartoon is out there.
Yeah.
So
a couple of them were on YouTube for a while, but they're gone now.
Mm.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I know for a fact that taking something like that and introducing it to little kids through cartoon or animation, because Scooby-Doo just had a movie that came out where it was Kiss and Scooby-Doo teamed up, and all these little kids now love Kiss. They go to the concerts. They know all about Kiss, but it's because they love the Scooby-Doo movie. So so I mean, that's a great way to get little kids interested in that other stuff, is to like channel it through something that they're already familiar with.
Oh, definitely. Right. Because I think she lives out in Virginia, so I should definitely get in touch with her. I go to school out there, and get to actually see the one-of-a-kind Cha-Cha doll. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And the best part is she had to decapitate a Frozen doll to make him. I had no idea that was how she made those. So there are probably some Disney purists out there too that'll have an issue with that. But
or Frozen #1, as they say, or something like that.
Right.
And she's a great supporter of the podcast.
Oh,
she listens every show, and she's always commenting and posting on our page. So that's definitely what we like to see.
Yeah.
That's Sarah.
And all right, and the final thing we'll jump into is this Lita Gray letter that was posted. Now, I want to give credit to the person that posted it.
I think it's Claudio Deckard. He posted it first to my Chaplin for the Ages Facebook page, and then I shared it with my own commentary.
Do you mind if I read it?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
It says, Charlie, as the world knows, was a genius, but personally, as a man, was very insecure and difficult. And these were some of the last words by Lita Gray.
And this
in the 90s.
When Claudio Deckard posted it to my Facebook page, he said, back during the 1990s, I wrote Lita Gray, his second wife, a letter. In my letter, I asked her what he was like in real life. She didn't write much, but that's all she wrote.
Yeah.
So basically, he asked her, and,
Well, it's not wrong. I mean, we know that she's coming from a place of
90 years
Personal.
previous.
Yeah, personal issues.
Yes. And she was married to him. She did live with him, so she would probably know more than we do.
Like I said, I'm kind of, well, no, I'm not on the fence. People that know me know how I feel about Lita Gray, but the thing is, yes, I mean, he's totally responsible. He had no business getting, involved with her. And actually, yes, her mother knew what time it was, and Charlie kind of got what he deserved getting involved with Lita Gray. I mean, the money that he had to pay out. But as time went on, the reality is she really didn't raise her boys. Her mother did. She was married 4 times.
She had custody of the boys, but
right. She had custody, but from what I understand, she lost all the money. Most of the money that she got in the divorce settlement, she lost in the stock market. So she had to do those vaudeville singing things.
A bit of karma.
Tours.
Yeah.
And she was in a movie called The Devil's Sleep in the 1950s. It was like an Ed Wood type B, C, D picture.
Right.
That's on YouTube. She was in some short Vitaphone film, which actually isn't too bad, from the 30s, and she sings in it. And that's actually not that bad. But of course, she's billed as Lita Gray Chaplin, and she was pretty much billed as that for the rest of her life. So, as much grief as Charlie caused her, she still stuck his name at the end of hers for the rest of her life.
She knew that she'd get more money with that name than without it.
And in 1932, she tried to put those 2 boys in movies with Fox. She had gotten a contract with
Charlie
Fox
would not have that.
Right. He took her to court. And their argument against him doing that is, and it's true, he was not involved with those boys until Paulette Goddard,
Right.
But that didn't take away from the fact that he was still their father, and he didn't want them to have that kind of life in show business.
He also didn't want the Charlie Chaplin name being thrown out with every single, because then you'd have his name out there. Then you'd have his boy's name with the last name Chaplin. You'd have Lita Gray Chaplin. That's diluting the Chaplin name.
Right, and here's the irony: when
it's a family business, but it's not.
When their first son was born, she insisted, and Charlie actually let her have her way, on him being named Charles Chaplin Jr. Charlie didn't want it because he felt that it would be a burden, which some say it ultimately was, but there's no way of really knowing. Now the second son comes, and Charlie wants him named Sidney, so his name is Sidney Earl. Purportedly, which it probably is true, Sidney Chaplin made a pass at Lita, and because of that, she started calling this boy Tommy. So I'm just like, that's strange. So Sidney actually, his mother referred to him as Tommy because the reason that Sidney Chaplin, made a pass at her.
Yeah.
Now,
this could be like a HBO miniseries. The Lita Gray years.
I do not profess to be a Lita Gray Chaplin. She has her own biographer, Jeffrey Vance, but I'm just, that book that she wrote in 1966, and she said it was ghost written, and she didn't
It's
know
like
what the editors.
softcore porn.
Yes, here's my take on it. 1966, Lita Gray was close to 60 years old. She had been married 4 times. She was, I mean, she knew what time it was. Like, in other words, that book came out and she knew what was in it. And yes, I'm sorry, it's very salacious. I mean, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm going to be straight out with you. I'm not going to lie. It's like, whoa. I mean, yes, you saw Charlie in a whole different light.
That book
You
came
know,
out after his autobiography, correct?
yes.
So you think his autobiography came out and she saw what a success it was and she goes, "Oh, I'm going to write my own
Or maybe a little
book."
taste of revenge because she's not really mentioned. Remember?
I
Well,
agree
then,
100% with Sarah.
though, on the back of the book cover, it has a picture of Georgia Hale. So, and we talked about that not too long
Right.
ago. I'm not sure if, like, because why would Lita Gray put a picture of Georgia Hale and not herself on the back of the book? Is it because she replaced her in the Gold Rush? Or I'm maybe wondering if it was a mistake that was made by the book company and the person making the
That would
cover
be a
couldn't
pretty
tell the
big mistake.
difference between Lita and Georgia. But then
That is,
if you're telling me that Lita didn't have a lot to do with the book, maybe she wasn't even aware of it. Maybe she had nothing to do with the cover being put
but
together.
you know what?
Girl.
I can't make a complete fair assessment because I have never. There was another book that she wrote that was supposed to make up for this 1966 books. It came out 3 years after she died, but Jeffrey Vance had, he knew her, he spoke, spoke to her, and I haven't read that because that book it's hard to find, and when you do, it's like $50.
Wow. Okay.
But from what I understand, most of that book is the divorce complaint.
Oh.
Which I have
And
my own copy of that from
right,
1928.
right. So I think she did kind of know what was in that other book
Oh,
in
I'm sure she did. I'm
1966.
sure she did. She probably might have felt bad about it later on, but
And
at the time, she was just trying to sell books. So,
right. And truthfully, I'm not saying what's in that book isn't true. It's probably all true. You know, and like I said, she was young. He had no business getting involved with her. He deserved it, but it was just the stuff after,
yeah.
that, you know.
Well, that's Lita Gray, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh man.
I mean, that time period to me is just all that stuff's just so interesting. I mean, we could go on and on and on about that stuff. That video on YouTube where Lita just sits down with a biographer on film and just talks about Chaplin. I think that shows her more in a good light than the book
Oh yeah.
does.
Oh
And
yeah.
actually in Unknown Chaplin, which Una Chaplin did not want Lita Gray involved in that at all, but
I
Kevin
can understand
Brownlow,
why.
I don't know if he insisted or however the verbiage is, her being in Unknown Chaplin, she did give insight to
Yeah.
things that we didn't know. So yeah,
It
she
was a
was
little bit
important.
more positive too.
Right.
They
And
caught her on a good day.
Yes, they
right.
did.
She had a sad life with their son dying, and towards the end of her life, she was working in this department store called Robinson's. And I remember reading there was a man that worked with her, and he waited pretty much until towards the end of her working there to ask Alita about Charlie Chaplin, and she said, that he was a very handsome man, and I personally think she always loved him. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think she ever
Well, who
got,
wouldn't? I mean, he's the
yeah,
most famous man in the world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And she does tell in her book about I think it was 1944 that she went to rehab for her alcoholism. Maybe she had gone before, but I remember this. And she was driving with Charlie, and this is what she says he told her, that the only women he's ever loved is the girl that he's married to, meaning Una, and Lita. I mean, if he said it, he may have just been saying it to try and
To be
inspire,
nice.
yeah, inspire her to, To me, that's more plausible than Georgia Hale saying the night before he married Una Chaplin, Charlie wanted to run away with her. That is implausible.
Her in that wig, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Chaplin
implausible.
wasn't. Yeah, that wasn't really his style.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, Georgia, you were like, I mean, let's be real here, ladies and gentlemen. She was 45 at that time.
Not
That
really his type.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah, we'll do an episode where we just talk about Unknown Chaplin and how that was made. And I got that book, In Search of Charlie
oh yeah,
Chaplin.
it's wonderful insight. I mean, again, I'm going to say this: Kevin Brownlow needs to be knighted along with David Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Brownlow went through the depths of hell to get that Unknown Chaplin. Him and David Gill, because some of the cast of characters in it kept giving him the slip, and oh my god, yeah. I mean, when he talks about Georgia Hale, I laugh. It's just
Well, yeah, and then they couldn't even get a whole. Wasn't Virginia Cheryl like really weird with
yes,
them, and she
yes.
kept canceling on them or not answering the door or whatever.
And Jim Tully gave them the slip. He tried to talk to Nellie Bly Baker, who plays in well, was his secretary, but she's the masseuse in A Woman in Paris.
Hmm.
They really went through a lot to get that made, and that must for anybody new to Chaplin. You have to watch that.
Yeah, I mean that book, In Search of Charlie Chaplin, is kind of like the companion piece to the actual Unknown Chaplin DVD set.
Right, because there's a part in that book where he's talking about the different takes of the immigrant, and I was confused. I'm like, I thought all of the mutual outtakes that they had, they showed an Unknown Chaplin, but they didn't. And just like, Dan Kamen was talking about in the BFI, at the British Film Institute, there's cans and cans of these mutuals
Yeah.
that
Well,
people can go in and see.
let's hope that they've digitized them. I would hope.
Oh God, you know, they wouldn't even have to put them in any kind of chronological order, as far as I'm concerned. As long as they were digitized, I could just watch them.
And
But
that
yeah,
stuff, and this is a perfect segue into our next little topic. That is material they should be showing at
hmm
the Chaplin Museum, which is supposedly opening in Vevey in 2016. But as Anna said, it's been opening for 5 years, so we'll see
yeah,
what actually
I
happens.
remember it was going to try and open in 2014, but then it never did. So they're still working on it.
a
Um,
lot of it, from my understanding, was financing it. I mean, I think it's wonderful that it's in the home that he lived in, but it's inaccessible to a lot of people.
yeah,
I mean,
it's kind of like a lot of Americans probably won't want to take the journey out to Switzerland to see it. They'd rather go to like Los to California and see the studios.
right, or
Well, you
even
can't even get in there. Like,
Right.
right.
yeah, I
The
mean,
the Jim Henson Studios now.
yeah.
I mean, even if it was in London, I mean, yeah, a lot of Americans go to London. You just take you
Yeah.
fly there, and you kind of know, like, all right, I can stay here, I can stay there. But Switzerland is kind of like, you wouldn't even know where a hotel is, and I'm sure it's super expensive there. Um,
Oh yeah.
so it's
We can
kind of
all pile into a hotel room together. We'll make it work.
Especially with the language too. Lots of Americans don't speak French.
right, right.
So, is the museum going to be in French, or is it going to be
I have a feeling
multi-language?
I have a feeling it'll be in several languages
Okay.
since Switzerland is such a focal point on the continent. All across Europe, they in museums they'll put different like German, French, maybe Spanish, and definitely English because lots of British people come over onto the continent very often. When I was in France 2 summers ago, several of the museums had at least four languages.
Hmm.
And they'll have like hearing aids. So yeah, they'll have several hopefully for the Chaplin Museum.
Yeah, and I imagine it has some of it has got to be in English because I
Oh,
mean,
The films.
right, and he spoke English and
he tried French. It wasn't really his specialty, but he tried.
But what we can do is on our podcast page, there's a link that I'll send over there that is on the Chaplin Museum, and they have a picture book in there, and they have a virtual
of all the
tour,
design.
right, of what they are envisioning. And I mean, it looks like they're putting a lot of effort into this.
It
That's
looks
good.
really cool.
Yeah.
Now, what would be your hopes for this? I mean, I know we really don't have any preconceived notions at this point. Is this supposedly a thing where you just go for one day, or is this something where you can go for like a weekend? I mean, I'm wondering how much there is there to do.
It ought to be a one-day thing, and I
Okay.
have a feeling it'll highlight a lot of his filmmaking life, and then like touch a lot on his 30 years or so, or less than 30 years in Switzerland.
The Lita Gray wing of the museum. Will be-
You mean the outhouse? No, no, forget it. I'm terrible. No, strike that. Strike that. That was terrible.
They'll show The Devil's Sleep on repeat, and you can go and watch it anytime you'd like.
Or I hope they do like something about his unfinished products, movies that he wanted to make, like The Freak, which was one he was working on with his daughter Josephine.
Yeah, this might sound terrible, but it's kind of like now this book's come out about this unknown film Michael Chaplin discovered, and I'm thinking to myself, it was kind of known along, especially in the early 1970s, that Charlie Chaplin was hoping to make this film.
Oh yeah.
So this book seems to imply that it's like nobody knew about this movie. And actually,
there are pictures of him with Josephine with the wings on.
Yeah,
right,
I've seen those.
right. And I mean, it's a story of this girl that's born with wings, and she's a freak, and that she's
She's one of the X-Men. That's easy. She's a
right.
mutant. Yeah.
But it's funny. In 1987, I think there was a movie called Date with an Angel, and I'm trying to think. It's actually is this beautiful French actress. It was an American movie, but I can't think of her name right now. But what it is the guy has a headache, and this angel is supposed to come down from wherever, and she ends up getting hit by a meteorite. But anyway, she lands in his pool, and through the whole movie, what he's trying to do is keep her hidden because people are going to want to exploit her. And then at the end of the film, she's supposed to take him back to heaven, and God gives her another chance, and they live happily ever after. But
that sounds like that movie Splash with
the mermaid movie.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. Just substitute an angel for a mermaid.
Right. But yes, so now there's a book about the film The Freak that I think Michael Chaplin wrote, or he's involved in it. I just thought to myself, the average Chaplin fan knows that he wanted to make that film, and for some reason, when his daughter Victoria married, I think he lost some inspiration. I don't know if he couldn't envision somebody else doing it.
Well, also his health too. I know his health was probably failing at that time.
Right, and actually, I have heard that people say that Una didn't want him to do that film because she thought that it would would kill him.
And what year was that again? He was working on that supposedly?
Well, I have a picture from 1973. He's in his study and he's talking about The Freak. So he said it's the film that he says perhaps I'll make it one day. So I guess it kept him inspired to keep going on with the thing. But
well, Chaplin was, creative people aren't people that just sit around even into old age. They don't want to just sit around and deteriorate. They're always thinking,
right.
They're always wanting to work on something. So I understand where he was coming from. But making a film, how old was he? He was in his 80s at that point.
Yeah,
that was probably a little too much for him to take on.
Right.
He was wheelchair bound, right.
And it's like I said, I don't believe Michael Chaplin wrote it, but he's kind of involved with the person, and which also comes to mind how actually in our absence in the past few months, Charlie Chaplin was born in a caravan in I think it's Black Patch in London, in a gypsy caravan. And the thing is that Michael Chaplin seems to be endorsing that he was born there. But actually, a lot of Chaplin fans don't necessarily agree with that he was born in a gypsy caravan.
Well, I don't think any of us truly know. We weren't there, so it's hard to say for sure. They didn't keep things archived like they do today.
Actually, when David Robinson, did the research for his book, I mean, he was amazed at how much information he was able to get in the hospitals on Hannah Chaplin, that they had kept good records.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. Especially being as poor as she was, you wouldn't think they would care to archive all that stuff at that time.
yeah.
The next little interesting topic that we have for today is there's a new version of The Kid that's being made by a filmmaker, and he's doing like I don't know if you remember the shot-for-shot remake of Psycho that Gus Van Sant made in like 1998 with Vince Vaughn, but it's kind of in the same vein as that. It's taking The Kid and redoing it in modern day, but at the same time, it's a silent film, it's a black and white film, and it's a pretty much a shot-for-shot remake of The Kid,
Yeah.
The
just
original
without the
Kid.
tramp. Yeah, the original Kid.
Right.
Who's the guy's name that is making it?
David Scott Heck.
David Scott Heck. Before we started recording, we talked about how he has the copyright for The Kid, but only in the United States.
Right.
And that intrigues me because I didn't know once something went into public domain that it could be re-copyrighted. So
Disney does it all the time.
Yeah. If that's the case though, like every piece of classical music could be re-copyrighted by someone. So I think there's something more to the story that we don't know.
Right.
But I mean, I do know that the problem that he has is that it's not embraced by the Chaplin estate. They didn't want him to make this film. So
Right.
therefore, they have the copyright outside the United States for that, for the original 1921 story, with Edna and all the missing parts of Edna and the father that he took out in 1971. So David Scott Heck's film, it's an independent film, and he's had it in a few film festivals, but he's never, from my understanding, going to be able to take that outside of the United States because they have the copyright to that story. And he also, even in the United States, cannot have the tramp associated with that film. So it's The Kid. It's black and white. It's silent. It seems to be scene for scene from the original. And I think it was Sarah that said it, that if you have a choice between a silent black and white movie of The Kid, you're going to take the Charles Chaplin one.
Yeah.
No, he didn't make it his own, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
it interests me. I mean, obviously the person making it is a fan, but
right.
from my perspective, it's like, why would you watch that version when the Chaplin version is available?
Right. I mean, you do see, I believe it was made in Houston, Texas. So you do see, a modern city. The thing is, though, what is intriguing is I was on, it might have actually been our podcast Facebook page, and somebody was asking about, the original with the scenes missing. So I said it's in the public domain. So then I went Internet Archives, because I know I've seen that version in there. Different music, and all of other Charlie Chaplin's films that are the originals that are in the public domain.
Yeah,
Like,
without his soundtracks added
right,
to them.
or any of the restored ones that have Carl Davis or other musicians' soundtracks. But anyway, so I tried to find it, and I'm like thinking, am I going crazy? I know it was in here. And then I found a question people were questioning, why did you take, the kid out of the public domain? And the page, Internet Archives page was like, they don't really know why it was taken out. So then that led me to believe, like, okay, first of all, I'm not crazy. It was in here, but now it's no longer in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that David Scott Heck had posted something on the Facebook page for the kid, and it had, that he had gotten the copyright. So then I scratched my head and I'm thinking, does that mean for the film? Like, what do you copyright? Do you copyright the story? David Scott Heck has a picture of a copyright. So I said to myself, what is being copywritten? Is it the story? Is it the movie? The story is Charlie Chaplin. I mean, he's the one, he wrote that, for the 1921 original release. So then I started wondering, I'm like, well, okay, so is he the reason why it's out of the public domain?
I don't know. It's we know that the 1972 version is clearly owned by the Chaplin Company, because it's got his music. That particular edit is under copyright. But as far as the original 1921 version, the version that I wish the Chaplin Company would restore and would put back out in some way, shape, or form, is, to my knowledge, public domain. But I didn't know that a film outside of Disney, of course, because they're able to do pretty much whatever they want. But I didn't think once something went into public domain that it could be taken out, unless some major changes were made to that particular version. I'd be interested in hearing how he did that, but at the same time, I don't think he would necessarily want to divulge that information with us.
That's true. And also because, he hasn't gotten a lot of support
Obviously.
from, from the Chaplin estate.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it's clear to me that that person's passionate, but my only thing I'm questioning is it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to make a movie, and you're gonna make pretty much a shot-for-shot movie remake of something that's like beloved by so many people that
Yeah, it's like
really is only gonna get criticized, no matter how good it is.
the other day, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I actually found on YouTube the original with, I guess it was the David Shepard edit of the kid that has his soundtrack plus the original, restored scenes in it.
Yeah.
And I had never seen that on YouTube. Probably if I went there today, it would get taken down. But like I said, it's not in the public domain anymore here, so
That's
I don't know.
strange, or maybe that particular version. I don't know. It's because that's an interesting thing that we could follow up on at a later time. And if anybody listening knows more about it, just let us know. Post about it because we're interested to know how that's even possible. But best of luck to the filmmaker that's making that film and trying to get it distributed. I mean, I'm not going to say that I won't check it out if I can watch it, but it just to me seems like kind of a pointless endeavor.
right.
Yeah,
I
because
think it would be better if it was not silent. If
Yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't,
If they redid it as like a modern movie with the same story, that to me would be a little. It would at least be unique. It would be different than trying to redo it as a silent film.
definitely. Like he's a third of the way there by doing it a modern take on it. He's just I don't think it needs to be in black and white, and I don't think it definitely doesn't need to be silent.
and
Hmm.
I think Charlie Chaplin's unique in the sense that, he started 100 years ago, but yet his estate, his image is still so protected. And that's the
Right.
thing. It's you don't have the support of that, it's really hard to get any traction. And like
Exactly.
I said, he can show it in the United States, but let's say the film took off here. The other problem is Charlie Chaplin is international. Even Charlie Chaplin realized that, and that's why I think he was a little resistant to sound because he knew going to cut off like a large percentage of his profits. I mean, at the end of the day, he was a phenomenal businessman.
Worldwide, yeah, he's a worldwide phenomenon, just not regulated
Right.
to one country.
Right. So this film can't be shown because they have the copyright outside of the United States on that story. So that's where, like I scratch my head. I'm like, is it the story? Is it the music? Because it's weird. The mutuals are restored. The thing is, it's the music that's copyrighted. I've actually seen where a mutual is on, like a restored mutual, but the music is on YouTube. It's muted, so you can watch the restored film, but the music isn't being heard because the music's copyrighted.
Yeah, there was a version of because of course Night of the Living Dead, the movie is public domain.
Yes.
And
Right.
they did some weird thing in the 90s where they did like a new version of it. They took the original film and re-edited it and added music to it. They changed a bunch of things about it and they added new scenes, and that version is copyrighted. So that was like their way of trying to recopyright the movie in their own way. But the fans apparently hate that version, so nobody wants to watch it anyway. Yeah, there are certain steps that certain people take to try to recapture the copyright of something like that. But it's difficult. You have to, like you said, with the Chaplin films, you have to add a soundtrack that's different, or you have to add intertitles that are different, or something that you can copyright that. Not
Right.
necessarily like the film footage itself is always going to be public domain, but if you add the music and the new titles and stuff, that can be copyrighted in that particular version.
Right.
So it's a messy area.
You're right.
But yeah, moving on to, we have two more topics we can talk about here. The new SNA Blu-ray set by Flicker Alley was released November, and I haven't had a chance to look at all the films. I've jumped around. The quality looks fantastic. It really does. It's definitely worth picking up. The thing
Now,
I like about it is
mhm.
that the old version that were put out by Image Entertainment, like 1999 or so, and Kino and Image, I think, put them out. They were tinted. They had tints to them, which I appreciate, but at the same time, I like that the new versions don't have tinting because it's easier to see what's going on.
Well, I mean, a burlesque on Carmen that's tinted. It's the older one from 1999, but
Yeah.
I can see things pretty much. I mean, and I think though the tinting adds some drama to that particular film. But now it's you know no tinting, but I mean it's amazing how pristine that they are.
Yeah. Well, there's a scene in the tinted version of A Night Out. It's supposed to be nighttime, and it's so dark that I can hardly see what's going on. And I know I'm pretty sure that's not how it looked when it came out in 1915.
Oh,
I don't think they tinted the SNA Chaplin shorts. I think
no,
the tinting was reserved more for Birth of a Nation and grander scaled films than
right.
the SNAs.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the tinting, but at the same time, I like that they went back to the original versions for this new set. The only thing I really wish that they had, that they don't, is commentary tracks or special bonus features. Because the Carmen film by itself could have a commentary track that lasts the whole film, talking
Right.
about pretty much how SNA screwed him over and all that stuff. I mean, that's
Right.
really interesting.
And even on the front end, the fact that this was a burlesque on a film by Geraldine Ferrara, a Carmen film, and really it's almost scene for scene.
Hmm.
Like if you see that version of Carmen with Geraldine Ferrara, it's just like Charlie just went and did scene for scene, but it was a burlesque that he was or a parody that he was doing.
And I've never
But
seen that version. I wonder if that's on YouTube. I should check that out. I'd like to see what inspired the Chaplin version.
I mean, I think it's a phenomenal film. It's just that it's mired because that four reel
The Ben
version
Turpin
that
version.
right, and it's so terrible. And I just think that people probably are like, I don't know what everybody's talking about, you know.
Yeah, the
But
public domain. Well, that's the thing too. I mean, that isn't the Chaplin version, but I would have liked to see that version on the set and maybe have a commentary on it, explaining what happened, what they did,
right,
the scenes
right,
that were added in. And I mean, I know there's a lot of Chaplin scholars out there that, and I know the Flicker Alley budget's probably not that great, and I know the sales for these films. They probably don't set the world on fire because they are public domain. But I think there's Chaplin scholars out there that would do commentaries for almost nothing just to have them on there. Because each film could have I know the Keystone sets, the Max Sennett set did, and that's some of my favorite things about these new sets that come out are the commentary tracks and the bonus features, because you really get an insight on what was going on at that time.
Well, I mean, to me, one of the things about Carmen and that period, and everything attached to that film is, a lot of people say that, Charlie Chaplin was a tyrant. He was, evil. He was mean. He was whatever, on set. But I think the fact that Leo White was integral in the padding of that film. Granted, he was being told what to do by his boss, George Spohr, but the fact that, he was involved with the padding of that, and yet Charlie never held that against him.
Yeah.
You know,
He probably knew. He probably knew it wasn't his decision.
right, and it's just unfortunate. But it's funny. We were talking about the 100th anniversary of the Mutuals, which actually the first release will be in May. But anyway, but we still have two more SNAs to celebrate the centennial, and one of them is Carmen, because it finished in December of 1915, and it was actually advertised. Like, if you go to these old magazines, it's showing Burlesque on Carmen coming up soon, December, but that never got released, the original edit, and they waited until, actually it was April 16th of 1916 to release that, and
that was after Charlie had pretty much left already, right?
Yeah,
Right.
he left in December, and then Police was released the next month, so we still have two more SNAs to celebrate the centennials of.
Now, what I find interesting about the new set is that the film His Regeneration is included in chronological order. I know on the old version, His Regeneration was kind of put on there as just kind of a bonus film, but
Now,
on the new set, it's been put back in. It's after By the Sea, and it's before Work, and it's because it says it was released on May 7th, 1915.
my understanding is Anderson.
Yeah.
He did a cameo in The Champion. So Charlie did him like a payback and did a cameo in Regeneration.
And it was a lot of people think it was some of it was directed by Charlie, because it says in the film he's slightly assisted by Chaplin.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. Oh no, it wasn't Mabel Normand, but there was I thought it was a Keystone film that had kind of that same story where the guy, he's a robber and he gets redeemed or whatever. But okay, so that was released in May.
Yeah, May 7th. It looks like it uses the same set as Police.
It's what's weird about that though is I know Anderson was up in Niles. That's where his studio was. So Charlie left there and did, By the Sea, and then the rest of his films in Los Angeles. But anyway, I'm nitpicking now. So yeah, that was kind of his, not payback, but he was doing him, a favor. But a lot of people don't even know about that little piece, that little bit in
His Regeneration. Yeah,
Right.
and there's the bonus material. There's only two films. Of course, Triple Trouble is included, which was a cobbled together compilation using unused Chaplin footage that was released like 3 years after he left the studio.
Yeah, in August 1918.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear more about that in the SNA show that we did. But there's a new one called Charlie Butts In, which I'll read what it says. It says the comparison between the different surviving elements lead to the conclusion that the one real version of A Night Out was distributed in the 20s and widely available in 16mm under the title Charlie Butts In. It was actually assembled from different takes than the standard two-reel version. It's unlikely that Chaplin, having left SNA at the end of 1915, ever approved the new edit, but because it is a very different film, Charlie Butts In is included as an extra to the initial two-reel version. So pretty much what it is, it's a different cut of A Night Out with a couple extra scenes thrown in from different SNA films to make like a new Chaplin film, quote unquote.
Like
So even in the 20s, SNA was up to no good with that stuff.
I wonder if I don't ever recall like Mutual doing that after Charlie left, like taking a hodgepodge of his films and just throwing them together.
I think he had more control at Mutual than he did at SNA.
But even Keystone, I don't know if they ever did that. But I mean, they constantly reissued his films, but I don't know if they ever like took different pieces of his films and then made a story.
It would have been real easy for them to do that too, because they had like 35, 36 films
Right,
to
yeah.
choose from there. Since we're talking about Keystone, we can lead it right into our last little topic here. A couple of months ago, I posted a photo. Well, Anne, you posted it on your Chaplin for the Ages site, and Phil Posner also has a little article written about it.
Right.
Give us a little background. There's these 3 still images that have been surfacing, and they were part of a biography, I think.
Right.
At some point.
In 1985, Maurice Bessy was an author. He was from France, and he was a friend of Charlie Chaplin's. In fact, in Monsieur Verdoux, there's a scene where you could see a sign for real estate for sale sign, and it does say Bessy on it. So supposedly that was Charlie's nod to Maurice Bessy. Okay, Maurice Bessy's book is called Charlie Chaplin by Maurice Bessy. It's a picture book. I mean, the quality of the pictures is not great, and actually some of the captions are a little off or whatever. But he does have some different photos than what you're used to. But he does have a photo, and what it shows is Mabel Normand at obviously, I mean, it was current then, but we would consider an old-fashioned telephone switchboard, it looks like. And there's a gentleman to her left in a dark suit and a straw, a boater hat. And here's Charlie on the other side, and he's wearing like a tweed suit, and he's got a straw boater also. And where did this come from?
It's obviously a film still, because there's three separate images.
And it's almost like when you look at it, it almost looks like he came there to get something and he's pouting. Phil Posner, who's been a long time Chaplin fan, I'm talking decades, into the 1960s. He has a website, philposner.com, and he has a filmography. And on the Keystone filmography, at the end of it, he has this poster, and it says Keystone, and it says how motion pictures are made, and it's
from 1913, you said, right?
Right. And it's it shows women up at the top in front of a dressing table, and then gentlemen, at the bottom. So it's been suggested perhaps that that film that Charlie Chaplin may have appeared in, I believe it's a lost film, but if that was the case, then that would be the very first time that he actually appeared in front of the camera.
Because he was at Keystone for like 2 weeks, right? Before he made Making a Living.
Yeah, he got to Keystone in the middle of December. Right. And he didn't start Making a Living until January.
And if you look at these pictures, he looks really young. He looks like he just walked on set. And it's been purported that this could possibly be from Her Friend the Bandit, but I think that's been ruled out. But we don't really know. And the how motion pictures are made theory, to me, sounds interesting, because if Charlie had not yet done any films, this may have been a screen test for him, possibly, or possibly a mock recreation of him applying at the studio, or getting a job at the studio. We don't know. We don't really know, but we know it's from a film print of some sort. And it's even more intriguing to me, the fact that he's not in any costume or makeup.
Right.
He's just himself.
Right. And it's a film where Mabel Normand plays a switchboard operator. And it's saying here that some thought that it might be from the movie, one of her movies called Hello, Mabel.
Wow.
But it's just, unfortunately, Mr. Bessie is no longer alive, I don't believe. I would just love to know where he got this picture from.
And it's the only time that these three images have been printed in any way, right?
From my understanding, yeah, it's the only time. But it's just, but it's weird because Charlie doesn't mention it. Nobody else mentions it. But you got this photo here, and then you have this lost film. And what's weird? If you look at the poster at the bottom of it, it says a Mutual movie. But Mutual was actually distributing Keystones at one time. It is strange, and like I said, Phil Posner is the only person that I've come across that I could say, "Oh, that makes sense." So if somebody else has some insight into it, I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I'll keep posting this picture around on Facebook, and maybe at some point we can get somebody who might have more insight. The Hello Mabel theory is new to me, but I think that seems legitimate as well, because Mabel would have been the star at this time. Kind of like Mabel's Strange Predicament was a Mabel Norman film that just had Chaplin in it, because he wasn't the star that he would
Right,
become.
right, right.
So I can totally see Charlie having a little cameo or some sort of scene in a Mabel film. If he's sitting around on the Keystone set for 2 weeks, it's my belief that Mac would want to use him if he's paying him, you know?
Right. Like I said, this seems more plausible than, his first time out is making a living. And I mean, that was a terrible looking costume.
Now, this how motion pictures are made. It was released in 1913.
That's what it's showing here, that it was released in late 1913.
Late. Okay, so I was gonna say if Charlie was around during that time and saw this film being made, possibly if he was even in it, if the stills that we're seeing are from that film, like you said, this could have been the inspiration for him to make the film How Movies Are Made that he made in 1918.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's called How Motion Pictures are Made, and it's pictures showing men and actors and actresses at the makeup table.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we can definitely post a link to it. But like I said, so far this is the only thing that I've read on it that I'm like, that's possible.
And it surprises me too that as distributed as the Keystone films were, and how anything with Chaplin in it from the Keystone era was copied and recopied and recopied. Possibly this is a film that people forgot he was in.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, Charlie Chaplin himself made 35 films. Right. But and you think of all the other Keystone actors, I mean, they were pumping films out. I mean, there was Keystones flooding the market. So it's possible that one film just kind of, slipped through. And I guess apparently in this film, there would be a lot of people in it.
True.
Showing you how motion pictures are made. So it's probably all different actors and stuff. If Charlie Chaplin is in it, he'd be in street clothes. So, he wouldn't pop out. Let's say a couple of years later, somebody's looking at this. If he's in street clothes, it wouldn't pop out at them like, oh, there's Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, because at least in a Thief Catcher, he has the tramp mustache. He looks. Right. It's obvious who that is. But in these pictures, if you didn't know what he looked like without makeup on, you could easily pass over that and not realize it.
Like you were saying, Her Friend the Bandit, but what they're wearing doesn't seem to fit into that. But...
You're right, yeah. You're right. Well, it's an intriguing mystery, and like I said, I'm going to keep posting that picture around until, possibly there could be somebody who has more insight on it. And if you're listening, just send us a note, post it on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page, and let us know what you think. Let us know what your hypothesis is, because as of now, we really don't know. It could be one of the three things that we think it is, or it could be something completely different. The Hello Mabel thing, though, sounds to me like it could be legitimate. Because if that film came out in late 1913, that's also a possibility. Well, all right, we've gabbed enough for today. I think we covered a lot of little topics that I kind of wanted to talk about for a while that we hadn't gotten to. So thanks for listening to the show for as long as you have. I mean, we hit
We
our
really appreciate it.
our
Yeah.
1 year anniversary, and
Sorry we've been off for so long too.
no, that's life gets in the way. We do these as we are available, so. And I think not doing them every week is a good thing. I think we get more mileage out of doing them separate, spacing them out a little bit more.
Yeah, because when we first started, that's exactly what we were doing. It's like every week. And we had enough, and we had done enough that it's actually almost like one a month that we did. I mean, if you span it out, because what is there, 10 or 11?
Something like that, yeah.
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 This would be like number 13. So on average, one a month. Yeah.
But I think the next one we're going to jump into is obviously the Mutual period, because it is the 100th anniversary of those films. And I need to go back and watch those to be able to. I haven't seen them all in a while, like especially like The Fireman. I haven't watched that in a long time, so I want to go back and revisit all those.
Yeah,
so I have.
That'll be fun.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about from 1916, 17. I mean, that's his most productive period, from his own words.
His most creative.
Yeah.
And next month is the 100th anniversary of his signing with Mutual Pictures.
Do you girls have anything else left to say before we head out?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, post on our page and subscribe to this channel, and make sure to share these shows, because the more listeners we have, the greater community that we have in the modern times world. And we really appreciate the input that our listeners give to us. This episode was pretty much just all listener conceived ideas that wanted to be discussed. So
yeah.
All right. We'll see you next episode. Thanks so much for listening again.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.